Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to add a beautiful accent wall. The first thing I do on projects like these is head to the dollar store and buy painter's tape and put it up on the wall in the design that I want to do just to see if it will look good in the space. This also helps you figure out the measurements for your pieces. I went to Home Depot and bought a 1/2 inch thick sheet of MDF and got them to cut it down to manageable sizes for me. Once I got it home, I cut it down to 1 inch strips. In the end, I think I had about 20 or 21 pieces. Once I had everything cut down, I sanded it with 220 grit sandpaper and then began cutting everything to length. The trick here is to get all of your pieces that will be cut the same length and cut them in bundles to make sure that they're exactly the same length. This will ensure that each of the squares meet at a perfect 90-degree angle. Now we move on to installing the pieces to the wall. I used a stud finder to figure out where my studs were so that I could nail these pieces directly into the studs, and then I used my level to make sure everything was nice and straight. As you can see, I'm using another piece on top to make sure it lines up with the panel box to the left. Once you have this done, it's pretty much a repetitive process, using your level to make sure everything is nice and straight and nailing the pieces to the wall. I also cut a spare piece of wood that I had to 4 inches to be a guide for my gap between each of the larger panel boxes. Now again, to make things easier for myself, I just got some scrap wood and cut them to the exact size that I wanted the spacing to be between each of the boxes and used that as a guide. This just makes it easier and faster to install each of the pieces. For the vertical pieces that don't hit any studs behind the drywall, I'm actually putting the nails in on alternating angles. This just allows the nails to sink into the drywall and hold the piece in place. Once we have everything installed, we're going to use some wood filler to fill in all of the nail holes and cracks. In addition to the wood filler, we're also going to use some caulk to caulk all of the seams, and I use a wet wipe to wipe off any of the excess. All of this is necessary to get a nice smooth finish for your paint. Because this room has a king-size bed and I really didn't want to move it, I decided to try wet sanding for the first time. I used a wet wipe and just wiped off all the excess wood filler. This helped to avoid getting all that dust all over the place. I would, however, recommend not using a wet wipe or paper towel that was as wet as the one I used. This could damage the MDF, so just keep that in mind when you try this method. Now on to painting. I did 1 coat of primer and 3 coats of paint, and here's how it turned out.